Greetings, YouTube. It is Dr. Zombie here, and today I'm going to talk to you about my personal journey towards atheism and why I very strongly use the term atheist and why I stopped using the term agnostic. So, growing up, my family was not religious, and I learned as I grew older that my father would have called himself an agnostic. I think of him as a pretty stout atheist, but he would have used the term agnostic. And my mother is not a Christian, and it's hard to describe where she comes from, but I'll just leave it as not a Christian. Anyways, I grew up not going to church, not doing any of the religious traditions, although we did celebrate holiday days like Christmas and Easter, but in a very secular form, in that we just focused on the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and things like that. However, in a sense, I did grow up in a religious tradition because I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood. And while my parents did not have money, and just hence why we lived in a bad neighborhood, my grandfather did have a lot of money, and he paid for my sister and I to go to religious private schools. Now, as I said, we were not religious, but the public schools we could go to were pretty crappy. So my grandfather paid for us to go to the nearby private schools, which also happened to be pretty religious. My grade school and junior high were Episcopalian, so I grew up in that tradition. As I grew older, the high school that was nearby was Catholic. So I went to Catholic high school. So growing up, was not baptized, so I could not participate in the communion services that happened weekly at my school. And I knew that I was not baptized, but I didn't really comprehend what that meant growing up. So I would have considered myself Episcopalian growing up. But by the time I was getting out of junior high in 8th grade, I was starting to question things. In particular, I did not like the idea of people on the other side of the world, people that were Hindu or Buddhist or Muslim, going to hell simply because they were not Christian and they maybe had never even heard of that stuff. Then, for my high school, I went into a Catholic high school. And I don't have anything bad to say about it. I received a very good education, but because they were Catholic, they were maybe even more restrictive on the religious side of things. And I was actually quite upset that me not being a Catholic, I had to pay more tuition to go there, but I still had to take the theology classes, the how to be a good Catholic classes. And I just thought that was kind of bullshit. Well, going through the high school and learning more about Catholicism, I got more and more upset about the fact that people that experienced these natural disasters supposedly caused by God were going to hell because of the simple fact that they were not Christian. And well, that was totally geographic. They were not Christian because they were born in India or China or Saudi Arabia, somewhere like that. Just simply because of an accident of birth, they were going to hell. And I just thought that was complete and utter bullshit. Well, because of that, because I learned a little bit more about the fact that my dad considered himself an agnostic. I started calling myself an agnostic too. I just couldn't believe in that stuff. And as far as I knew, the only evidence for it was the Bible itself. And I just thought that was nonsense. So, well, I know that Christianity is true because the Bible tells me it is true. And the only evidence for Christianity is the Bible. And that just seems like circular reasoning, kind of bogus to me. So as I said, I considered myself an agnostic. And I kept considering myself an agnostic for a long time, all the way through grad school, and up until the point of my crash. Now, in case you haven't seen my previous videos, I was in a very bad motorcycle crash. I won't go into too many details. I do in my first video, but I was in a very bad motorcycle crash that came very close to killing me. And my reasons for surviving were were circumstantial in the fact that I was wearing very good motorcycle safety gear and I received top-notch medical care. Those were the reasons for surviving. And I get very upset when somebody says, oh, it was a miracle. And again, I go into all of this in my first video, and we'll go into it here. But after I was in my motorcycle crash, I was already getting my master's in engineering. And so, after some time off, I was able to go back and finish my master's, which I did. Then after my master's, I had an epiphany and decided it was important for me to go back and get my PhD. I did, and now I have my PhD. That's why I call myself Dr. Zombie. Zombie because I came back from the dead. Because I stopped breathing for a little while after my crash. But that's getting off the subject. When I went back into grad school, um, he's now probably my best friend. But at the time, I just met this guy, and become friends with the guy Tom. Anyways, Tom was a pretty strong atheist, and I hadn't really met somebody like this before. And the difference between Tom and I was Tom was very well educated on the subject. So, through him, I started researching things and learning a bit more about it. And learning that the term agnostic is not really a noun, it's an adjective. It describes a state of understanding. And so there are two polar opposites. Gnostic, which is a state of knowing, and then agnostic, which is the state of not knowing. So just Gnostic, I know all about the subject, and agnostic, meaning I don't know everything there is to know. And then I learned more about the term atheist. And so I'll start with describing the term theist. And that just means I believe there is a God or gods. So as opposite of that, the term atheist just means I'm not convinced of the existence of a God or gods. So you could have a Gnostic theist or atheist, and that means I know there is a God or gods, or I know there's no God. I'm not in the camp either way. And then agnostic would mean I think there is a God, but I don't know. Or I'm not convinced there is a God. I don't believe in one, but I don't know for sure. And that's the camp I fit in. So I started thinking just the term agnostic means I don't know. And I started feeling that's kind of wishy-washy. It's like applying to myself. I don't know what comes after death. I don't know if there's an afterlife. I don't know for sure there's a God. But I'm pretty damn sure it's not anything that's been laid out beforehand. Meaning, I'm pretty sure it's back up. I'm an American, so I'm the most familiar, and because of my Episcopalian and Catholic background, I'm most familiar with those, and I'm pretty damn sure that's not right. So I embraced the term atheist, if you want to get technical, I consider myself an agnostic atheist, but atheist nonetheless, because I'm not convinced any of that shit is right. If you like this video, please like and subscribe below. And also feel free to leave a comment. Now, also, Dr. Zombie is now on Twitter. So you can also follow Dr. Zombie on Twitter. Thank you. And always remember, if your problems are getting you down, just KTF.